Good morning, everyone. Happy New Year. Welcome back, board members, and welcome to the Greater Miami Expressway Agency Board Meeting. I would like to call our meeting to order at 9:01 a.m. Please join me for the Pledge of Allegiance. Now I'm going to ask our corporate board secretary to conduct a roll call of board members.
Good morning, thank you. Chair Cancio,
Present.
Vice Chair Perez,
Present.
Treasurer Pages,
Present.
Secretary Blanco,
Present.
Secretary Miller.
Present.
We have a quorum, full quorum.
Next, we have declaration of voting conflicts. Board members, at this time, please advise if you have any conflicts based on the items on the consent agenda or regular agenda.
I have a conflict on the regular agenda item A.
Any others? So now let's move to our public comment period. If you wish to address the board today on any topic, you have 3 minutes to address the board. And I will recognize Mr. Olson to identify those who have signed up to speak. Mr. Olson, you're recognized.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I don't believe anyone has signed up to speak, but if a member of the public wishes to address the board, please come forward at this time. You will have 3 minutes to address the board. Oh, okay.
I'll break the ice. Good morning. My name is Carlos Carrillo. I am the Executive Director of the South Florida chapter of the Associated General Contractors of America. We are located at 8200 Northwest 41st Street, Suite 200, Doral, Florida 33166. The South Florida AGC is a trade association representing the commercial construction industry in South Florida and throughout the state of Florida. We frequently serve as an advocate on boards and committees interfacing with procurement organizations such as yourselves. Today, I am here to speak on behalf of Mr. Alston and the executive director position, which you all are going to be evaluating later today. I had the pleasure of meeting Torrey Alston many years ago when he was an attorney for the Miami-Dade County School Board, and I've had the pleasure of continuing to work with him through his stops at the Florida Department of Transportation, Broward County Schools, and before that, the Broward County Commission. Torrey has served in many diverse roles, serving as a staff member, serving as an elected official, overseeing those agencies, and what it has done is created an incredible individual with the tools necessary to move an organization like this forward. At each of these stops, Torrey has taken the time to listen to us, to implement smart policy, and a couple of times to tell me to fly a kite in a very nice manner, which actually left me walking out of that meeting with a smile on my face. On behalf of the Associated General Contractors and our members, we hope you guys move forward and remove that interim tag from Mr. Alston's title. You all have a jewel in your midst. You have someone with the right tools to get the job done, and it is our feeling that we would love to work with your organization, especially with someone like Torrey at the head. Thank you.
Well, thank you very much for your comments.
Okay, then are there any additional speakers, Madam Secretary? There are no additional speakers, Madam Chair.
So next is the approval of our meeting minutes from the December 13, 2023 meeting. Board members, you've had an opportunity to review the minutes. Is there any discussion or a motion for approval?
Motion to approve.
Second.
Is there any final discussion? Then let's vote on the item. All in favor, say aye.
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 Aye. Opposed, say nay. Motion passes. Now we are on to the consent agenda, and I will ask our acting general counsel, Rafael Garcia, to read the consent items into the record. Rafael?
Thank you, Madam Chair. The only administrative item on the consent agenda deals with governance, and that's number 1, amendments to bylaws. Back to you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Rafael. As the consent item deals with the bylaws for additional transparency, I'll ask our interim executive director to highlight the proposed amendments to the bylaws. Mr. Allison, you are recognized.
Yes, good morning. Thank you, Madam Chair. Good morning, members of the board. This is the most important document of your organization as it relates to governance, the bylaws. As you know, on July 5th, the governing board initially approved the bylaws, and it's now back up for additional consideration. I'll walk through the changes in the bylaws for the board and the public. The first change is under 3.2 officer elections. We removed, quote, who need not be members of the board and as may be amended. It gave the impression that the secretary and or treasurer may not need to be members of the board. So we only reference back to 348 in statute. Also under board meetings, 4.2.A, meeting agendas. It was very explicit on the number of days for the meetings. We reference Florida Sunshine Law, which provides detailed guidance for meetings. Under 4.6 quorum, we added vacant and or unfilled seats on the board shall not count against quorum. Again, this is how we're currently operating, how you're currently operating now from a governance perspective. We thought this explicit language would also provide additional clarity. Under 6.2 executive director, we added the sentence, the board may delegate the hiring and or termination of agency staff to the executive director via board policy. Once again, this is consistent with your prior action in statute. You've delegated that at the prior board meeting to the executive director. This again is consistent with current operations. On the last page of the bylaws, under section 8.1, maintenance of books and records, we were clear that this was the executive director and the general counsel via the board executive secretary who's responsible for this work. And then the other two, I'll call it very minor changes, under 9.1, in place of resolution, we added the word vote. And under 10.1 effective, it was just an affirmative action by the board. So Madam Chair, members of the board, those are the proposed changes today for the board's consideration for the bylaws.
Thank you, Tori. Board members, you've heard the consent agenda, and now is the time to advise me if you have any items that you would like to pull from the consent agenda. Is there a motion for approval of the consent agenda?
Motion.
Second.
Any discussion? So all in favor say aye.
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 Aye. Opposed say nay. Motion passes. Next, we will move to the regular agenda. The first item is GMX procurement contract number RFQ 24-01, design engineering services for SR 878, LED lighting conversion, work program number 30041-000. I will now recognize Ms. Rawlson to introduce the item formally for the board.
Okay, good morning. Thank you again, Madam Chair, members of the board. This item is for design engineering services, approval of the TEC recommendation. If you're okay, Madam Chair, I'm going to ask our Director of Engineering and Emergency Management to provide a high-level overview of this recommended item for the board's action.
Yes,
Good morning, board members.
good morning.
This item is for the design of the 878 lighting conversion. This was an RFP that was advertised, request for proposal, that was advertised in October. We received 5 submittals. The technical evaluation committee met in December 8th of last year, where we evaluated and discussed the proposals, and at that time, HBC Engineering was evaluated as the highest ranking firm. So the item in front of you is to accept the technical evaluation committee's recommendation and enter into a contract to not to exceed $700,000 for the design of the lighting conversion on 878.
Okay. Are there any questions or comments? Is there a motion for approval of this item?
I was going to make a quick comment, but we can
Sure.
move past
No,
it.
go ahead.
It was
No,
just,
Secretary Moore.
it's always good to see a good distribution of scores. So there's a clear demarcation of who the three TRC members saw as the apparent best firm to move forward. So it was just nice to see that those scores were pretty clear. So that's all.
Sure. Board Member Perez.
What is the the actual savings on the lighting cost? Do we have that number?
In terms of
In the end.
like what we would be saving to the conversion,
Correct.
so we've done that analysis in the past. 3%? 30%. So yeah, we've done that analysis in the past in the other conversions that we've done. And because of the way that we are, the way that we work with FPL, we kind of see it at the back end, but we ultimately we're seeing a 30% reduction in our power bills by going to LED on the highways.
So do we have a motion to approve? Or you have another question?
No, I was going to say motion.
Same motion. Okay,
but we have a
sure.
question.
Board Member Pages, you're recognized.
This chart is obviously the technical evaluation. Where does the cost, where does the cost come in?
So we negotiate that now, basically by statute.
Okay.
It's called the Consultant Competitive Negotiation Act.
Okay,
CCNA.
Professional services, you don't select on price, you select on qualification, and then you
Perfect.
negotiate their services based on hours and fees.
right, and if you can't negotiate with the one you choose, then you go to the next one.
We set like we do an estimate, and then this item, what we're saying is that we will negotiate to a not to exceed amount. If for whatever reason during the negotiation we exceed this amount, then we will bring this item back.
Perfect, I understand, thank you.
Oh, excellent questions. Thank you. So do we have a motion to approve?
Motion.
Is there a second?
Second,
All in favor, say aye.
aye.
Any nays? Motion passes. So the next item on the regular agenda is board policy reviews, and I will now recognize Mr. Ralston to introduce them.
Yes. Actually, before we get to the board policy reviews,
Yes.
Madam Chair, we're going to address contract number 16-01, Design Build Services, the item that's before you. So if you don't mind, Madam Chair, members of the board,
Absolutely.
I'll ask once again our Director of Engineering and Emergency Management to present the high-level overview of this item.
Yes. So item B is for the 83611 project. It's the I-395 836 interchange project in partnership with DOT. This is a supplemental agreement for additional work. It's broken down into two components. Component one is for engineering costs to develop right-of-way easements for foundations for the bridge that we're doing over the river that fall within the City of Miami right-of-way. So these are costs that just developing the engineering easements to be able to do the foundation work. The second component is for bridge strengthening on Bridge 113. That's an 836 eastbound to I-95 southbound movement. It's an existing bridge that's it's under GMX's jurisdiction. So during the design, there was a bridge analysis that was done, and we found some deficiencies that weren't originally anticipated. So this is to do some strengthening of the pier caps and do some carbon fiber reinforcing to be able to accomplish the work that we need to do in this area. So in total, it's a $286,000 supplemental agreement to the CJV.
But is this amount something that falls completely on GMX versus sharing the cost with?
This is for all work associated with the 836 portion of the job. So yes, everything falls on our side of on the roadway, and these are assets that we will ultimately continue to maintain.
Okay. Any other discussions?
So I confirmed with my team, because we had done some of this analysis, and this is very consistent with what was done on the FDOT side of the business when it came to the easements. So that's very consistent. The structure itself, this is just the nature, unfortunately, of some structures. And once you start to get into the reconstruction or widening of facilities, things come up. So it makes perfect sense. The analysis made perfect sense. So no issues from FDOT's perspective on this.
Yes.
The deficiencies are not life-threatening, I suppose? I'm
No, it's
assuming not,
just-
because
it's just that
we're
because-
we're
because
taking
of
our
the
time
age
to
of-
do this.
It's just because of the age of the bridges and the work that's associated. We do load ratings, we do these structural analysis to make sure that what we're adding to upgrade the bridge to current standards is sufficient to make sure that we don't fall below a structurally deficient rating moving forward. So these are just things that, like, as the secretary mentioned, these are things that develop during any design build or any, normal course. You try to identify as much of it as you can prior, but, in due diligence, we always do further analysis as you move forward in any phase of projects, and you have these issues come up from time to time, so it's better to address them now.
All right, thank you.
Okay, so is there a motion to approve item B of the regular agenda? Is there a motion to approve?
Motion.
Second.
Okay, all those in favor say aye.
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 Any nays? Motion passes. Okay, so now the next item on the regular agenda is the board policy reviews, and I will recognize Mr. Rosen to introduce them.
Thank you again, Madam Chair. Good morning, members of the board. Again, thank you for your leadership and direction approving the bylaws earlier, and now on to the round 2 of the policies as you've tasked myself and the team to come back to the board. So I'm going to walk through each of the policies along with the substantive changes across many of the policies, and then I'm happy to answer any questions from the board. The first policy, citizen comments, on page 1 of the policy, and you'll see this throughout all the 5 policies and the additional policies that'll come in the round 2, 3, and 4 to the board. We've added committees explicitly. Before, as you recall, we had board members, but we've added committees because board members can also sit as committee members as well. Under Code of Ethics, we added spelled out GMX up front to avoid spelling it out later in the document. You'll see under the various values that we also clarified many of those statements as well. On page 3, we added MDX because that was speaking to our inherited organization rather than GMX, our current organization. On page 4, we added non-professional. As we talk about consultants, there are professional, non-professional, and construction services. One of the takeaways from this edition on the procurement side, as we update our procurement manual, we will reference non-professional services going forward. We also added the word agency on page 6. One thing, and I think I heard from several of you, we will be consistent moving forward. So again, we have 4 rounds of these policies. I would ask the board to work with us as we continue to work on the design and style as we bring the several additions to the board for your consideration. I'm going to jump to page 9, where you see on pages 9 and 10, removal of the prior annual disclosure requirements. It was very long and detailed. To make it very simple, we just made a reference to the Florida Commission on Ethics because they're the custodian for ethics disclosure and requirements for the board. And then on page 12 of 13, under the whistleblower protection, we referenced the agency's website, which was already listed there as well. Let me move to the delegation of authority policy. One board member, which was prudent, recognized that there was one of these specific delegations that was very specific and not needed going forward. We agreed with that. We removed that, which is under 2.1, the prior noise wall and other similar agreements section. So you will notice that that is stricken out. Under section 2.7, Capital Asset Disposal Authority, we removed the reference to an outside consultant, also which was very prudent on all the policies going forward. We will ensure that all the references are for GMX staff because it's under your direction as the board. You'll notice the inserted references to the directors or designees as noted from the interim executive director. Under the lobbyist registration policy, we added the word registration, referencing the form, not disclosure. You'll see that we've added the form for your awareness, the lobbyist registration form that's required for GMX. And then lastly, under the public records policy, we inserted some standard language on public records from Florida Statute 119 from the Attorney General's office and provided more clarity and transparency on this policy. Again, we thought this was, strengthening the language, but also providing additional transparency and clarity on the agency's public records policy. Members of the board, those are the recommendations for your consideration.
Are there any questions for staff on this item, or is there a motion for approval?
I don't have any questions, but I appreciate the opportunity to take a more deeper dive into some of these. I was trying to do it earlier, and it was a little overwhelming. So I appreciate that we've sort of broken them up into packages and had the opportunity to go through. I know that ultimately we still have to reformat them, and there's going to be Scribner's errors and that sort of thing. Would like to point out, and Tori didn't point out, and I appreciate it. Under our code of ethics, we have become a $0 policy entity, which means no gifts of any value, and I think that's prudent on our part because we deal with so many contracts and so many consultants, and this applies to us and our committees, those who work with us. I think that's just important that we be transparent about that with the community.
Thank you for pointing that out. Yes, Board Member Perez.
I have one question. Non-professional is what?
So let me first answer the question that we don't have it currently defined, although there is standard language on what the definition should be for professional or non-professional services. So I'm going to ask, one, do you want to take a quick stab at the norm in terms of language for non-professional services? Or Marie, I know it's more on the goods and services side as well.
Okay, I'll try. So I guess when you're dealing with professional services, it's anything, from my side of the industry, professional services usually relates to architectural engineering services where you're procuring those type of that type of product. Then you have other services that are that require certifications that fall under the professional category. But then you have like the lower, like I don't want to say that we don't enter into business with non-certified vendors, but for vendors that don't have stringent certification requirements, that would be probably where non-professional services come into play. So that's where we make the distinction.
Would it be like marketing or advertising?
On the goods and services
like
side.
janitorial services,
Right.
Something more, low-level type work that we would do to handle day-to-day stuff around the agency or anywhere. But other services, professional services, contractors, that would be more professional. Contracting, design, architectural engineering. I think marketing would be something that we would consider professional because there are
You
certain
would consider
certifications that are
professional?
attached to that we would look for. Given that there is
He
criteria
said
in
he
the state,
would, but
I think there's criteria in the state that we would defer to when selecting those type of services. So anything that is defined and there's clear statute or something that falls under the Florida Administrative Code that we can refer to, that would fall under professional services.
And if I could just follow up with that. So that's why I gave the answer. We have not defined it as an agency. It's coming. Other agencies have defined it. The state has defined it. Local governments, counties, school districts, hospital districts. So typically, if there is a certification or a license involved, that's particularly one category. when there's one that's not involved is traditionally another category. But we will define it in our procurement manual on the goods and services side because we haven't done it just yet. So that's why I want to raise it for the
But
board.
may I suggest that we are consistent with the state definition so that we don't create our own different definition of what it is?
100%. Yes.
So did we already approve this motion? Okay, so is there a motion to approve? Is there a motion to approve?
Motion to approve.
Second.
Okay, all those in favor say aye.
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 Aye. Any nays? Hearing none, the motion passes. So the next item on the regular agenda is an update on the search process for an executive director by Board Member Blanco. And I assume that this will preview some topics for the meeting that will follow our board meeting. And I will ask Mr. Alston to step away from the dais for the discussion. And Board Member Blanco, you are recognized to provide an update.
Madam Chair, the update is we're going to be meeting post this meeting in the committee to review the information that have been previously presented and to go deeper in the discussions. That's the update.
So your committee has a meeting right after?
Right after this.
Okay, and the meeting is,
It's a public
a public meeting.
Available for anybody to attend. Yes,
okay, and then you'll give us then another update
correct.
for our next board meeting?
Yes.
Very well. So let me go get Tori. I know. So now we will move to reports, and our first report is the interim executive director's report. Since the full report has been shared and posted online, I would like to recognize Mr. Alston to provide any additional highlights for the board and the public.
Great. Thank you, Madam Chair. Good morning again, board members. Good morning, everyone. Thank you for this opportunity again to share an update. As noted, Madam Chair, the full report has been posted online, so I'll try to highlight a few areas from the report. First, let me say that since you tasked me with leading a compassionate transition from our predecessor agency, I can report that efforts continue to move in the right direction. Let me first focus on the area of governance. As you know, we have posted all of your board meeting dates for the remainder of the year. We have placed that ad in the Miami Herald, at least for the first 2 meetings, and we'll handle the final 4 meetings coming up here shortly. As noted from you, these are the upcoming additional round on policy reviews. At the next meeting, we'll focus on the engineering policies, followed by HR, administration, communications, and then at the July meeting, we'll focus on finance and the procurement policies. Let me focus on financial stability. I know this has also been a question that has come up. Let me first just alert the board that I have been in communication with Ben Watkins. We just had a conversation last week as we prepare for our next rating agency surveillance review, which will most likely be the first week of February. So I'll be working with the board treasurer. I think we also shared some initial information back a few weeks back as the chair and the CFO, of course, handle some initial financials from the agency. So we'll circle back with the treasurer on this directly. I have shared that bond counsel, we're close to securing bond counsel to bring on board. We're probably another week or so. There are a few steps that we need to take on the legal and procurement side, so we're close. Let me focus on financial controls. As you know, your external auditors presented to you at the last meeting as it relates to the outside audit that was done directly to the board. You know there are no material weaknesses that were found as it relates to internal controls. I do want to point out the issue of P cards. So just for the board and for the public, GMX does not provide P cards to employees directly. You should know we just have 3 general P cards overall, and those are departmental P cards at the agency levels. Just want to point that out for the board. Let me jump to daily operations. As you recall, board members, I shared 10 big idea questions with the entire board. You have started to share that direction and feedback, which is amazing. And based on that, we are proud that we are now able to share that we have some core priorities that we're going to focus on to build our coming budget and work program. And those will focus on safety, system improvements and preservation, mobility improvements and congestion relief, and transportation technology. So we're excited that those are the 4 core areas identified by you, the governing board, which will serve as the baseline for me and staff going forward as we build a work program and budget that meets the direction of the board. You have the details on the January through May additional steps that will be taken internally, the board involvement and engagement between now and that final meeting. So I won't go into detail on that. You do have that in front of you. I'm going to jump straight to people and culture. As you know, I have overhauled our human resources department and excited that we have a new HR manager and ADA coordinator who's on board. I'd like to publicly recognize and introduce to the board, and she didn't know I was going to do this, Michelle Hedges, just so the board and the public, if you just wave, Michelle, glad to have you on board as our
Michelle.
new HR manager for the agency. But as you see in front of you, these are just a few areas that Michelle is 120% hard at work, handling many of these critical areas that I've also briefed you, members of the board, our employee handbook, E-Verify compliance, and getting our onboarding process really to be a first class and best in class where it should be as an agency. So just want to share that with you, the board. I'm going to jump to communications and public engagement. Again, I have regular communication and conversation with many of our transportation and stakeholder partners. I'll highlight that last Friday, our executive director of the Florida Turnpike Enterprise also stopped by while she was here for a conference. We had a great conversation on some pending items I know that the board has raised, and I'll try to share some of those at the end of my comments. South Florida Saves. So at the last meeting, board members, you asked for a comprehensive plan and update. You see the high-level update on the slides, but you also in your package have a detailed update on the overall paid advertisement, non-paid advertisement, radio ads, design banners that are online, social media presence as well. So just want to highlight that for you, the board. You have that at your fingertips. The one thing I also highlight is our municipal engagement. We have reached out to all of our partners, many who have already come on board to provide additional support promoting the program. So just want to highlight that for you and the public. I'll jump straight to what's ahead. As I referenced at the March meeting, the active traffic management, the aesthetic enhancement, the excess property, and the property acquisition policy will be back for board's consideration. As I did before, I will share a Word document to the board. So if you have suggestions, we will review that in advance of making a final recommendation to the board. The good news is we have done a majority of our agency overviews. So I know that the vice chair, this was one of your follow-ups before. So we're excited that we're almost there. We got 1 or 2 more that we're planning to do. But once those are complete, as I've shared with all of you collectively, next month, we're planning to do the ride-alongs for board members. So you will see all of our projects and to look at all of the expressways covering Miami-Dade and Monroe County. So we're excited that we are going to share that with the board. I know we've had some internal conversation around our fleet, and we're close to getting all of our fleet wrapped. I know that was also a question from the board. I think there was one of the vehicles, I think still maybe downstairs. I saw it earlier, but we're almost close to getting to 100% for that as well. Let me just jump to, I think, another couple follow-ups. I think there was a question before around an item on the 112. I think we satisfied that, board member Pages, treasurer Pages. Lighting, board member Miller, as you know, this will come back to the board at the March meeting, and we'll have some additional items for the board to consider. Madam Chair, the good news is our executive director of the Turnpike has moved on several items. Actually, I told the team they would actually make some of these updates, so I won't steal their thunder. So if you don't mind, I'd love to ask, actually, let me go to Claudio first, just to give an update on what we received back from the Florida Turnpike, and then I'll come to one on another item.
Good morning, board members. Yeah, we've been in communication with Florida's Turnpike regarding the invoicing that was requested previously. So we saw some drafts already, and there's customers already receiving it. So in the bill and their statements, you'll see it no longer says MDX. It'll reference GMX, and then the format in the front page also changed. We're asking for additional changes, such as when South Florida Saves program, the rebate amount is individualized for our agency. That way, people understand exactly when or how much the rebate is for when they're using our system. So that should be fully implemented by the end of this month. Regarding the South Florida Saves, we are on track to be able to produce the rebates by mid-February, which is usually the time that everything gets reconciled and is able to calculate the rebate for the month of January. So the program did start on January 1st, and the rebates, people should be seeing them mid-February.
That's excellent, thank you.
I'm just going to clarify that a little bit. I know that's the goal. I think we're hedging our bets just a little bit. It might take us to the end of February for the first round. That's what happened with the Turnpike while we did the statewide. Took us a little longer for that first bill, and we managed to get to the mid-month. So I think our goal is to try to get to the middle of every month. But this first month might take a little longer as we focus just on our program versus the statewide program.
So I have a question. When is it that the bill comes out? Let's say for January, like for your usage for January, when is it that the statement comes out
Is it the 15th?
normally?
Yeah, it's about the 15th. It's halfway. Because obviously transactions that come in, let's say the 30th of the month, take some time to reconcile and verify and then be processed accordingly.
So the question is, when that statement comes out, whether it's the 15th or later, will the discount be there, or
So for
maybe
the-
they'll get the bill and not have the
For
discount
the
yet?
first month, it may or may not. It took, when we did the statewide program, it took a couple of months to get all the way back to the 15th of the month. The first month or two lagged a little bit. So it showed up on the second statement because you didn't have it on the first statement. The goal is to try to get it with the statement that's the monthly statement.
Right.
But it might lapse the first or second month of the program just because it's a modification to the system.
Right.
I know that Turnpike is working very hard to get that resolved with the hope that it's mid-month with the normal statements.
Thank you.
Yeah, that's the goal.
Any other questions?
This is just on feedback. I know you've done a great job in changing the names and all that. Lastly, Google Maps.
Yes, it is on the radar. That has been August forward item for us, but yes, I got it.
Okay, so if there are no other comments or questions, the full report has been shared. Do we have a motion to accept interim executive director's report?
Motion to accept?
All in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed, say nay. Motion passes. Next on the agenda are informational items. The procurement report has been provided to the board with updated executive contracts and open procurements. The report is for information. Are there any questions on the procurement report?
If I could,
Yes,
Madam
Mr.
Chair.
Olson.
And I don't think, well, I defer to the board on questions for the procurement report. There is one more item that I also wanted to address. Board member Pages, I know it was one connected to you. And one, would you care to give an update? I apologize, just going from my notes here. There's one item that we omitted.
Yes, and I believe this is related to the coordination with the county for the reimbursement. We have been in communication with the county over the past several months. Their response back to us is that it's in the attorney's office, but we haven't heard back from the attorney's office, but we are continuing to put in the request for the status of those reimbursements, and we're hopeful that, we will be getting an answer at some point.
From the private sector side, that answer would be not acceptable, right? Because, and I understand, it's a different animal. How long do we stay in this pattern? And do we have any recourse beyond this holding pattern and hope that we get paid?
So I think I'll take that, Madam Chair and Treasurer, and I think which is the right capacity. As I'm looking at our acting general counsel, maybe the right potential next step, if the board wants to direct me to explore all additional remedies to the fullest extent possible, then I think that we potentially could have additional dialogue, conversation, and whatever else may be needed.
So you need us to give you guidance on this.
Yes, sir. I
Okay,
think that
so-
would be helpful.
Okay, so
So do you have any recommendations?
I recommend that the executive director pursues any and all possible alternatives and avenues to recover, which is what, over $5 million, is that right?
So the
More than that?
total is actually one is 8, one is 5. You want to
Oh.
clarify?
8.1.
Yeah.
I missed the 8 million,
two.
sorry.
Yeah.
All right. All right, so this is not, we've been at this for a little bit now. We spoke about it last year. I spoke about it originally in our original orientation. We came back and forth. It's a very confusing issue, and I understand. But bottom line is that we are owed this money, and we should pursue the money at the full extent that we possibly can. So that's my recommendation. We give the executive director, interim secretary director, the authority or the right.
So is there a motion to recommend or request that the executive director pursues all legal remedies to collect the $8.1 million that we owe by Miami-Dade County?
It's more than 8.1. It's 8.1.
So, Madam Chair, just to clarify, I think it's 8.21, and the
8.21.
other is 5. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Got it.
So both
Oh,
of
it's 8.2 plus 5.
Yes.
Can we just say open balances?
I think, yes, the pending past due amount owed by the county. So is there a motion to approve this recommendation to request executive director to pursue this collection?
Move.
All in favor, say aye.
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 Aye. Yes.
Sorry, Tori, would that mean our general counsel, when you say remedies, is it general counsel to county attorney's office? Or are we doing like outside counsel for this?
Well, actually,
No.
this, I think there's another discussion that I would like to bring up too.
Okay.
It's what is happening with the status of, like, we posted for a general counsel. What is the status of that? I have not heard.
Yeah, so I know it's an open procurement on the street. I think we're still going through the process. I'm going to ask our CFO maybe just to give a quick update on where we are. I think I recall the number of respondents, but I'll defer to the CFO.
Don't want to have technical difficulties. Thank you. We did release the procurement, and this week we did receive one proposal, and we're evaluating that proposal. So we did receive one proposal for the general counsel services.
Just one?
Yes, ma'am.
And by when would we make a determination? Does that come to the board, or how does that work?
Yes, ma'am. It will come to the board.
Okay, so then until our next meeting in March, we're not going to have a new general counsel in place, right?
Madam Chair?
Yes.
Or if there, and this may be one of maybe one or two other topics that could come up before the March, I'm going from memory, March 28th meeting of the board. So there could be a recommendation to consider maybe a special meeting to consider maybe that item and potentially maybe one other item that could come back to the board before the March 28th regularly scheduled meeting.
Okay. Because I would not want to wait until March 28th to proceed with this collection matter. I don't think that, I think we're all in consensus that we want to pursue this as soon as possible.
I don't think we would need to do that.
Okay.
I think the motion that we just passed, I think affords the interim executive director and our interim general counsel the opportunity to explore avenues. I don't think we need a new general counsel to do that.
Okay.
But I agree that we do need to obtain our general counsel.
Right.
I know we received, Maria, you just said one proposal, but I believe we had multiple respondents to our advertisement, correct?
Unfortunately, I don't have that. We did have a pre-proposal. We did not have a large select the firms that did participate in the pre-proposal. We did have one firm that did propose on it, which was yesterday, and the technical evaluation needs to move forward, and that's on February 14th. Thereafter, once that's evaluated, then that will be, Executive Director will provide recommendation to the governing board in March.
Okay, well, thank you very much.
And if I could just add one more. I
Yes.
think there were several respondents to the pre-proposal meeting that was held that also showed up here in the boardroom. So there was, although we only got
I
one,
think there were 3 in
right,
total.
so 3. Just want to put that on the record. I think that was
What
your
is a
question.
pre-proposal meeting? Is that a normal, customary standard?
Yes, normal customary part of the process. If there are questions that a proposal or a potential respondent wants to ask the agency, they use that time to work with the agency to understand if there are any questions that they need answered before submitting.
Very well. Board Member Pages.
Is it normal to have just one proposal for a service that is, I mean, not, no disrespect, but not necessarily unique? And there are more law firms than people?
Hey, I'm taking
I mean,
offense.
is that normal?
I'm only responding to the question. So
I'm not offended.
I
I'm
know
just-
that in our GMX directory of firms, I know that we reached out to multiple law firms in the initial outreach for this service. Again, there were 3, 4, I think, who came to the, no, you told me no, okay. I know there were more than one that came to the pre-proposal, and I think only one thus far has responded. So just kind of giving all the numbers.
Is there a deadline for that?
Yes, yesterday was the deadline.
Oh, okay.
But internally, do we know why?
I understand.
Why is this?
And it could be different reasons, whether it's, I don't know, legal, contractors, kind of speaking kind of all across the board. It could be a variety of reasons. Could be cost, could be timing. I mean, there are many variables that could impact whether it's one respondent or 3 or 5, depending on what the service is.
Okay.
So from my perspective, sometimes when this happens at the agency, we have an open discussion and sort of talk about, we could extend an advertisement, but do we feel that we would receive additional respondents if we were to extend the advertisement? And that's really the question, right? So you can always say, okay, well, the deadline was yesterday, but we can extend and perhaps ask additional qualified firms to submit, but are we going to receive anyone else?
So because
I
I think I
hate
know
to go under a one
Yeah,
firm scenario or a one respondent scenario, but it's really dependent on if anyone else is going to choose to work with us in
If
that
I could,
capacity.
and
But
becau-
yes.
And because I think I know the answer to that, but we're also still under the cone of silence. So it'll be a recommendation that I'll bring back, considering everything you just said. And I think you just asked one key question that on the staff side that we consider as well, along with everything else you just said.
So that would be a proposal that would come from you to us, not from us to you?
Yes, so based on the formal procurement that's out, I will
Yes.
make a recommendation back to the board. Sounds like now before the March 28th meeting, so we'll look at a potential special call meeting that you will call along on this topic and potentially another topic that may come back to the board before the 28th.
Okay, very well. Any other comments? No? So, this was a lot of information. And moving on to announcements, our next board meeting is March 28th, 2024, 9 a.m. Also, the Executive Director Search Committee will meet following this meeting. So with no additional comments, I adjourn the meeting at 9:50 a.m.